But Mr. Bhasin also joins us to talk to us about all of these stocks. Mr. Bhasin, let's start with IT itself. I know Persistent has been one of your favorite. Tech Mahindra had really played out very well when you had recommended it. Which are the other stocks from the IT sector that you're picking out right now?
Yeah, good morning. Anisha, HCL Tech has also been one of my outperformers. I continue to think that is an outperformer. And you can add an LTTS. I've been saying that for the last 2 days. The specific space in defense which they have, that is doing extremely well. And the order book and the execution will take maybe another 4 quarters. But they have a very constant flow, and that is going to be very positive. So HCL Tech and LTTS is something where you can even now put your money on.
Curious to get in your take on Honasa Consumer or Mama Earth, if you will, Sanjeev, in terms of just understanding the kind of market that it's operating in. Do you think that the same treatment down the line could be meted out to Honasa that was to Nykaa after that stellar listing?
Yeah, good morning, Avan. I think you'll have to get one of the ladies to tell you more about that. I don't track Nykaa that much, and I think it's a wonderful company, but the valuations have never been to my liking. Same is the case with Honasa. We will wait for more color on the numbers. Don't take this one quarter, let it more play out. But we know this is a very, very growing field, and the acceptance is much higher for the new millennials. However, the competition in this industry is going to make it difficult to make money. So I would rather go with Paytm, Zomato, and PV Fintech, which have been three of my top picks, and I continue to stay focused on those three stocks. These are two stocks which we will have to wait for more deliverance on numbers.
Taken, but Mr. Bhasin, what about the banking names? And I'm talking about large cap banks. If you have, let's say, like of ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, or HDFC Bank in your portfolio, what should one do? Should you get out of that and probably buy mid caps because there's a bigger, alpha there, or just stay put? Their time will come too.
Well, if I see the present last 2-3 days, it's actually more of the large caps which are showing you strength. And if the index has to go higher, it will have to be large cap banks. And I think this undue concern raised by the RBI is a good cause of concern, meaning, he's voicing, but it has hardly anything on the ground effect. We all know that, this personal loan and all had reached a climax, and most banks are well capitalized, particularly the large cap ones. And if you are seeing the type of, activity in defense, power, railways, they are all conduit to banks being the lending institution. So I continue to think overweight on these banks, Axis as being my top pick. You can add some of the mid-cap banks, which I think again are giving you an opportunity. But this fall in the bank nifty is more to do with sentiment. Actually, I think banks will come out with very stellar numbers. And like the State Bank chairman pointed out, a little bit of maybe 2 or 3 basis point on the NIM could be the marginal effect, if at all it is. And yes, the lending from NBFCs and all, that is a good point of concern, but I think there is enough buffer on the other side, and most banks are very well capitalized. I still think HDFC, ICICI and Axis should be in all portfolios, and maybe they've underperformed for the last few months, but I think now they can start to be in line with market performance.
This group which has given stellar returns, and you got to hold your breath. No pranayams, but just hold your breath here. Hold your breath, because the kind of return what you've seen in, let's say, a tube investment, a Coromandel International, even for that matter, Carborundum Universal, this year, well, they may look okay. But the minute you compare them from COVID lows, let's say 2020, it's just been absolutely amazing. From COVID low, Carborundum Universal, which is by the way a cyclical stock, is up 2x to 2.5x. Look at tube investments, 3x. Chola, some of these stocks have seen absolutely stellar returns. Sanjeev, we spend a lot of time discussing Reliance, HDFC Bank. We spend a lot of time discussing a lot of other names like Zomato and Paytm. But the stealth move has actually happened in some of these South companies. We don't talk about it. But when I started my television career, they were the sultans of South. And they are still the sultans of South. It's just that we don't pay too much of time in discussing them, and look at the wealth they've created.
Correct, Nikunj. I would back you 100%. And these are very very strongly entrenched brands, and they have been outperformers. You can add a Chola Mandalam and and an Ashok Leland. Ashok Leland also from those lows of 30 rupees is back to 180. That is one stock, and Chola which are in our portfolio. But you rightly said, people are missing the woods for the trees. The bigger picture is playing out superbly. But Nikunj, remember that some of these market caps and the floating stocks are not as much as entry and exit is easier. Reliance, ICICI are large caps which are most preferred by institutional investors because entry and exit also is an opportunity. So if you take the implied cost, sometimes these stocks will become long-term gains, but in the short term they may turn to be a sideways. But like you said, no running away from the point that the South stocks. You can add a TVS Motor also, which has been most the darling of the auto stocks which are hitting all-time highs. So I am fully with you. The broader market is still giving you a lot of strength. That is why if you do your homework correctly, and mutual funds have actually missed the boat because a large part of them did not delve into PSUs, which have been the biggest wealth creators in the last 3 years. Whether it is defense, uh, whether it is defense, whether it is railways, or whether it is power, and those are continuing to make new highs.
What have you sold in your portfolio? We always say ये लिया वो लिया. क्या बेचा? कुछ तो बेचा होगा ना.
हाँ, थोड़ा बहुत हमने रीवैल्यू किया अपने पोर्टफोलियो को. सम ऑफ द लार्ज कैप consumer names we've actually sold out. I have sold out on Chola and Mahindra as a disclosure, and we've added, like we told you, we are very bullish on Idea. From that 11 and a half, we've added that. Now I know these are slightly high risk high reward, but so was Suzlon at 8, 10, 12 rupees, and it's 50. So I am not making the case, but there is a fundamental change. Even today people are wondering what BHEL is doing. If the stock from 25 has gone to 150 and still is a loss making stock. So don't compare the future with what the markets are discounting. Markets are discounting that the order book for the next 3 years on power transformers is the best ever in the last 5 years. And so is the case with maybe a Vodafone, which we are extremely bullish. We think the transition now has been superb. And if you see, we as an entity, they are just on that anvil of raising capital, which will again reinforce the back machinery. So you have to be in slightly names which have had a murky past, but the future looks very very bright.
What is the turn? What do you mind, Sanjeev, is driving the entire power space? Is it just pure sectoral re-rating? Because power is one of the sector where that outside gains are going to be impossible considering that it is regulated.
Correct. But Nikunj, what we have to realize is that there was a history where NTPC and the likes traded at, there was a 11% dividend yield on those stocks. And they were just considered widow stocks. But, suddenly the deliverance of power, the acceptance and the distribution of power has been huge. REC, PFC, I stay in Gurgaon, by the way, DHBB and Dakshin Haryana Bijli Vidyut Nigam, after 35 years has first time declared a dividend, which means that the loss of transmission is now over. There is an FIR against non-payment of dues, and regulation is very strong, which means recoveries are the fastest. And as we know, there is a sovereign sovereign holding behind REC, PFC, which are safer than Reserve Bank of India. So along with the dividend deal also came the lowest cost of money, and the distribution and recovery became very fast. And I think that is what has driven power stocks. You can say that they have reached a peak, but problem is they are still under-owned, and PSUs, which were always hated, have still a valuation comfort even after running up so much. So thirdly, Nikunj, also take into account that if there is India inclusion in the bond index overseas, then sovereign bonds, NTPC, REC, PFC are sovereign rated bonds. They will have the first buying interest, and their yields can fall sharply, which will increase their net interest income and margin over a period of time. So we are not making the case to buy them immediately, but I think these are superlatives because of under ownership and very underpriced multiples for years, which have now come to realize.